Bureaucrat, a novel by Levi Sweeney, read by the author. Chapter 13, MAGA. Time heals all wounds, intoned the pastor at the memorial service. The scene, a public park approximately 75 miles away from South Seattle. Thanks for coming, Thomas, said Tina, as she and Thomas D. walked through the parking lot. It had been a nice, informal service. A bunch of well-wishing cards on the table, some 100 guests from all over the country. One young woman with blue hair from Nottingham, England. Nice food, catered. Italian, actually. A local rock band played a tribute performance of the Beatles, no charge. A lot of sad songs, including Yesterday. I enjoyed meeting you and your family, said Thomas, smiling. It was October, 2 weeks before the general election. He had chosen to forget about politics already. He was making plans to leave. He'd already talked to his landlord about terminating his lease. He'd been having serious, in-person talks with his bosses at Macrozon. They'd offered him a raise, though not a promotion, but Thomas wasn't interested. He'd filled out the application his dad had emailed him. Finally. He wanted to go home, by Thanksgiving if possible. After Thomas walked Tina to her car and wished her goodbye, he climbed into his rental car, drove to the ferry, boarded the ferry, and went to sit in the passenger cabin. He had a window seat. He was reading a new book, The Pilgrim's Progress by John Bunyan, brand new from Barnes & Noble. He read it deeply. He enjoyed it. The time for mourning was done. Thomas actually saw Matt Hendricks one last time before Matt moved to Florida in December. Thomas and Matt had become friends after the night in Coeur d'Alene. Matt Hendricks wasn't the greatest friend, but he was a pretty okay person. Yeah, she had you guessed pretty close, actually, said Matt to Thomas. The two were sitting in the hotel lobby at the big hotel in Bellevue, where the KC GOP usually had its meetings. Everyone else was upstairs, eyes glued to a plasma screen TV. In 2024, the Republicans were going to win big in the other Washington. Thomas knew it. He had the right data this time. Matt shook his head and patted Thomas's shoulder. Don't worry, Mary will be okay. I actually ran into her when I ran over to Spokane back in August during the primary election. She's fine, laughing at Sid Meier's concession speech. Geez, that girl thought it was hilarious, and frankly, I did too. Can you please call her for me, said Thomas. That's kind of a big ask, Thomas, but I'll try. Just for you, pal. Thomas scoffed and grinned a little. He felt a little better. Matt gestured upstairs. Want to get some food? I hear Trav called from D.C. to tell Steve, very emphatically, that watch party of yours better not run out of pizza, Steven. Thomas laughed really hard. Now he did feel better. Sure, said Thomas, clapping Matt on the shoulder. Let's go, buddy. Earlier that summer. As LD chair, Thomas had actually accomplished a lot. They now had a professional website. They had started collecting enough donations to rent a nice conference room for their party meetings. They now had 30 active PCOs who attended monthly meetings. There was now a clear line of succession, with Thomas D. as chair, plus a treasurer, secretary, and first and second vice chairs. Thomas had even convinced PCOs to adopt bylaws. No other LD even had those. Thomas got his PCOs on the road, too. He studied other local campaigns and worked with a core team of 4 or 6 stalwart PCOs to go volunteer at campaign events about once every 3 weeks. They were now competent activists and not just slacktivists. Debbie Erickson was at one of these meetings. She had an idea. Well, why not, said Debbie, who had been elected secretary. Rob was treasurer these days. Joy had retired. Yeah, I get that Washington State is really blue and probably won't go for Trump no matter what we do, but Mother Hubbard, why not just do it? Because it's the right thing to do. They were in their conference room. It was normally used as a co-working space for local startups and nonprofits. Thomas D., LD chair, now dressed in a suit and tie, sat at the head of the table, blinking repeatedly, lightly. He was not 100% on Debbie's plan. Donald Trump, said Thomas D. Debbie, you are suggesting we get everyone in the LD to go out in full force for at least 4 weekends before the general election in South Seattle to go doorbelling for Donald Trump, the Republican nominee for U.S. President. Debbie nodded gamely. Yeah. Thomas was wearing his glasses at the time. He took them off. He chose his words carefully. The state convention was a distant memory by now. He didn't even need to try to forget it happened. Everyone else was more or less in the same boat. The sheer irrelevance of that spectacle had almost automatically arrived. Thomas looked for the right words. He looked at the assembled PCOs, gathered and standing around the room, if they weren't seated at the rather large conference table. It was basically an oversized, cheaper version of the hotel boardroom where the county party executive board usually met. 37 people were present, including guests. Thomas D. I don't think I'll get anywhere, LD chair or not, asking if any of you want to reconsider going doorbelling for Rich Everett, will I? All the PCOs murmured quietly. Some cupped their chins in their hands, others looked at each other. Some whispered in the back. About 80% of them had planned to support Sid Meiber in the primaries, with Thomas D. and Rob Strusinski being the most vocal exceptions. It was June, and Sid Meiber was still campaigning. The gubernatorial primary wasn't until August. Lisa Lionel had left Seattle in late February with her husband. Thomas gave her an early Purim present before she left. Thomas was not optimistic about Mr. Meiber's chances, Republican nominee or not. Washington State had a jungle primary, meaning that the top 2 vote-getters in the primary, no matter who they were, would go on to the general election. There could be 2 Democrats in the general for all they knew. The likely names on the ballot in November 2024 would be Russ Gerson, prefers Democratic Party, and Rich Everett, prefers Republican Party. Thomas had spent many LD meetings explaining these basic facts to his PCOs. Calmly, politely, intelligently. Nobody cared. At all. They all really, really wanted Sid. They all called the candidate by his first name. Thomas put his glasses back on. I've got dinner with my parents in an hour. Why fight this? Why? Debbie Erickson knew that Thomas liked Everett. She also was his friend. She was trying to make his job just a little easier. Why not let her? It's a great idea, Debbie, he lied. This LD has had enough infighting. We need to unite. Ties are tough for Republicans in this town, but I see the wisdom in this request. I don't think we need to vote on this. Thomas inwardly rejoiced when he saw Debbie Erickson break out into a rare, toothy grin. Thomas D. slowly, deliberately stood up at his spot at the conference table. He paused and deliberately, swiftly made contact with every person in the room who was within his field of vision. It was quiet. Get your Lincoln on, he thought. Now! This LD supports Donald J. Trump, he said, and every single person in the LD meeting roared in applause. Dinner with Mom and Dad had been nice. But now it was September. Debbie Erickson made sure Thomas D. kept his promise. They would spend September doorbelling for Donald Trump, then Thomas D. could go doorbelling for Rich Everett in October. Debbie even agreed, as a concession, to help Thomas D. when he did that. Thomas kept his promise. And then some. All right, we have got everybody. Everybody has a place to go, said Matt Hendricks, going over to a clipboard Thomas had bought at a Staples. Mary is here, and so are the other KCYRs. A couple of folks from Pierce County, too. All good, all good. We've got like 10 or 12 guys from Thomas's LD. Got some folks from the other LDs coming up here, too. Yep. Hey, Mr. Wood, how many people did you bring over from Bellevue again? I got 4 PCOs with me. Young guys, said Travis, who was walking by, carrying a box of campaign literature. He had his blue suit on, not the gray one. And Steve said on the phone that some of his guys from Enumclaw will be here in like 10 minutes. Okay, said Matt, furiously scribbling notes on his clipboard. I think Marco and Lauren are no-shows. Thomas? They're in Cleveland right now, said Thomas. From about 10 feet away, he was making sure all the volunteers had the app correctly rigged up on their smartphones. He actually texted me last night. He says good luck. Lauren called me too. He said that this is, in her words, the ballsiest stunt the party has ever done. Trav heard that one. He laughed out loud. Don't forget Paulie, shouted Travis. He's on his way with a bunch of randos from Tri-Cities right now. Don't forget Paulie, he says, muttered Matt Hendricks as he scribbled more names on his clipboard. He needed a new pen. Now that is a big ass, Travis. 55 PCOs showed up. 55. 5. No speeches, no stage, no dialogues. Just business. During week 1, Thomas D. wound up partnering with Travis Wood, the King County GOP chair, and the two went doorbelling in a little neighborhood in South Seattle. They had all gotten together at 11 a.m. on a Saturday. They managed to keep at it with about 75% of everybody who came on the first day for 5 weeks, not 4. They actually started in the week of August instead of the first week of September, and because so many volunteers wanted to do even more doorbelling than they had originally planned. Boom. Hey, I mean, as long as we're doing something, right? Said Travis, as he and Thomas left the house with kind of the old homebound senior. She was voting for Biden, but she had said very nice things about Travis Wood's suit. She really liked Travis's bright orange tie. Travis grinned for real that time and pumped his fist after the door closed. I mean, said Travis to Thomas, at the end of the day, I can't technically order the PCOs of any LD to do much of anything. We're all volunteers, we campaign where we want, wherever we want, and that's fine, those are the rules, but... He grinned and shook his head. Thomas, this is the most fun I've had in politics since the 2016 election night watch party. He pumped his fist again. Thanks, buddy. Thomas beamed. Thomas and Travis were friends. Good friends. They trusted each other. So, yeah, Italy was a blast, said Mari as she and Thomas went doorbelling together. Week 2. I'm glad you had fun, said Thomas, smiling kindly. Oh, yeah, she said. That. Tyler and I needed a vacation, and the kids loved it, and it was just a real dream vacation. Thomas grinned, shook his head, and returned to studying the canvassing app on his phone. Sure. Thomas and Mari were friends now. Real friends. Mari had learned to mind her personal space around him. She was beginning to pick up on how she made Thomas feel. She came from an immigrant family, and she just sometimes forgot to turn off the charm, is all. No long talk necessary. She got it. It was okay. They were a good team. Almost like brother and sister. So it's Julia, right? Your sister? Said Mari after they got back to the public park where they all met in between doorbelling sessions. The 55-strong work group did 4 hours a day every Saturday for 5 weeks, from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Thomas and Mari sat side by side and chomped on cheap rubbery pizza. Yeah, said Thomas, in between mouthfuls of pepperoni and tomato sauce. She's in college right now, doing a graphic design degree. She just moved into her dorm. She likes it. Week 3. This time it was Thomas and Rob Straczynski, the accounting guy from the caucus. Ay, 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 as Lisa might have said Rob as they left the house of a very angry Bernie supporter, South Seattle. Thomas snickered. You still in touch with Lisa? She said. A little, said Rob. We text a little. She's in Virginia now, just outside of D.C., I think. She teaches at this private school. She's okay. Thomas wasn't sure what to say. He wished he'd been a little nicer to Lisa when she was still in Seattle. He had once had a nice conversation with her. He bought her a pastry while they waited for a KC GOP meeting at the hotel to start. She hadn't wanted a hot dog because it wasn't kosher. Yeah, Ellie stepped in at once while talking to Lisa, said Thomas. Oh, what happened? Said Rob, still wearing his big, happy smile. Thomas laughed a nervous, breathy laugh. Oh, it's nothing. I just once asked her if she had any kids because I didn't know much about her family, and she said no, and I, because I'm an idiot, asked why, and she just looked a little befuddled, and she politely explained that she had these joints and muscle problems which would make bringing a baby to term very difficult on her, and... Thomas sighed. I just felt like a huge tool, and I wasn't even trying. I was just making conversation. That's me, Rob. Rob patted Thomas on the shoulder. You're a good man, Charlie Brown, he said to Thomas. He kept marching ahead. He looked at his app. Hey, this app says there's a guy here. He looked ahead. Oh, he's got a Madonna statue in his front yard, and American flag magnets on his mailbox. Let's go talk to him. Thomas was hesitant. Rob, we might be a registered voter, but the app... Come on, Thomas, I think I saw somebody walk by that curtained front window. Week 4. Lunch. Wait, said Lauren Tynan, laughing lightly, as she, Thomas, Marco, and Mari munched on more pizza. Matt was somewhere nearby, drinking out of a chilled water bottle. Wait a minute, you were doorbelling in, Rainier Beach, and what happened? Lauren had a new paperback stuffed into the back pocket of her plus-sized jeans. This one had the words Stephen King printed on the cover. Thomas told the story, again. Rob says, hey, what about that one? I'm kind of distracted, a little tired. I trust Rob, and I say, okay, sure. We go to this little old house, and a statue of the Blessed Virgin Mary in the front yard and on the front porch made out of plaster or something. And there's an American flag with a website of a veterans charity on it, magnetized to the mailbox. Then Rob rings the doorbell, Rob Straczynski, I mean, and oh gosh, this really big, burly guy with a goatee comes out, and short hair, military haircut, he's white. He just stares at us. I go into my spiel. I mentioned that we're Republicans. And this guy is a confirmed registered voter. And the guy, the homeowner, he just says 2 words. 2 words. Get lost. That's it. He then slams the door in our face if you leave, and it starts pouring down rain 2 blocks later. Marco took a long slurp of his teeny strawberry smoothie and then said something funny. Everyone laughed. Week 5. Even Steve German showed up to this one. After everything had been cleaned up, he and Thomas went to a local hole-in-the-wall burger joint which Steve knew about, and they got milkshakes. They sat in their car together in the lot. It was cool and dry out. Cloudy and overcast. No danger of sweating to death. Steve was wearing his big white Stetson hat. So, think this LD will pull the lever for Trump and the general? Said Thomas. We all did a good job, and South Seattle is actually pretty okay with Republicans if those Republicans are on their doorstep and not their TV, but... Steve laughed again. He had ordered a chocolate peanut butter nightmare. Thomas had strawberry banana. Steve had treated him. Mr. D, said Steve, you did more today than organize an event, or a series of events. You created a community. Way more important. Thomas beamed. Steve was so great. Friends. Thomas had friends. This is The Bureaucrat, a novel by Levi Sweeney, read by the author. You are listening to Chapter 13. Thank you.